The most terrifying stories often begin in the most ordinary places. A quiet street, a friendly face you see every day, a sense of total normalcy that's actually hiding something truly awful. We think we know the people around us, right? But sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one you would never ever suspect.
So picture this. It's August 16th, 1975, late at night on some quiet street in Utah. A highway patrol officer, Bob Hayward, has just wrapped up his shift, but he spots something off. A Volkswagen Beetle just cruising down the street with its lights off. He knows this neighborhood and this car, it just doesn't belong. When it pulls over near a house where he knows the parents are away, leaving two teenage daughters home alone, well, his instincts are absolutely screaming.
After a quick chase, the driver gives up. And when Officer Hayward shines his flashlight inside that car, he finds this. And let's be clear, this is not a burglary kit. This is an abduction kit. Every single item here, the rope, the handcuffs, that ski mask, it tells a story of terrifying, calculated violence. But the driver, he's calm, handsome, totally articulate. He says his name is Ted. He's a law student, he says. He just saw the towering inferno at a movie theater and got turned around on his way home. I mean, it sounds plausible enough, right? Except for one tiny detail. Officer Hayward knows for a fact that movie isn't playing anywhere in town. And this was our very first look at the charming, manipulative mask of Ted Bundy. Now you gotta understand, that traffic stop in Utah, that wasn't where the story began. Oh no, that was actually the beginning of the end. For over a year, this phantom had been hunting young women all the way from the Pacific Northwest down into the Rocky Mountains, just leaving this trail of absolute fear and so many unanswered questions. And the pace was just relentless. One disappearance right after another, and he was crossing state lines. In February of '74, Linda Healy vanishes from her own apartment in Washington. Just a few months later, by October, Melissa Smith, who was the daughter of a police chief, is abducted in Utah. This killer was mobile, he was methodical, and he was always one step ahead. So you have to be asking, how did he do it? How did he get them? Well, witnesses at a park where two women disappeared on the very same day, they described a handsome guy, his arm in a cast or a sling, struggling to load a boat onto his Volkswagen. He'd ask for help, He'd play on their sympathy, disarming them. He was polite, he was charming, and he always told them his name was Ted. Bundy's ability to just move between states and leave almost zero physical evidence, it was driving local police crazy. His reign of terror, and others like it in the '70s, it actually forced law enforcement to invent this radical new tool. They needed a way to hunt the killer by first getting inside his head. And this is where things get really interesting. This was the birth of what we now call criminal profiling, coming out of the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit. The whole idea was just groundbreaking at the time. It was like, forget just fingerprints and fibers for a second. Let's reverse engineer the crime itself. The theory was that a killer's actions at the scene are like a signature that reveals exactly who they are. So the profilers, they zoomed in on two main things. First, victimology. Who were the victims? Bundy's victims were almost all young, attractive college students with long, dark hair parted right down the middle. I mean, it was a clear type. And second, the crime scenes. They were weirdly clean, with very little sign of a struggle, which told investigators this guy was careful. He was in complete and total control. When you put all that together, the conclusion was inescapable. Bundy was the textbook example of what they called an organized killer. He was smart, he was socially skilled, enough to blend right in. He planned his attacks, he brought his own tools, and he meticulously cleaned up after himself. He wasn't some monster who looked like a monster. He was a monster who looked just like you and me. So how does a person even become this? I mean, to really understand Bundy, you have to look past the crimes and look at the man himself. Or actually the two men living inside one body. There was the man the world saw, and then there was the monster hiding just beneath the surface. His entire life was just one big performance. Publicly, he was this promising law student, a campaign worker for a big-time politician. He even worked as a counselor on a suicide hotline, where people praised him for his empathy. But in private, he was consumed by these incredibly violent fantasies, crippling insecurity, and this obsessive need for control that he could only satisfy by doing the unspeakable. And in his own words, Bundy really tells you everything you need to know. For him, the violence wasn't just about the final act. It was the whole process, the stalking, the planning, the waiting. That was the ultimate thrill for him. It was all about owning another person completely, about dominating their very existence. From a psychological standpoint, Bundy was a perfect storm of the worst possible traits. He was a textbook narcissist and a sociopath, completely incapable of feeling empathy. To him, other people weren't really human. They were just objects for his own gratification. And that lethal combination is what allowed him to live this complete double life, without a single shred of guilt or remorse. So after that first arrest in Utah, it's almost unbelievable, but Bundy would go on to escape from custody not just once, but twice. His final run from the law would end not with some brilliant piece of detective work, but with the very same careless mistake that got him caught in the first place, leading to a trial that would both captivate and horrify the entire nation. And in this crazy, almost unbelievable moment of déjà vu, an officer down in Florida spots a familiar sight: a Volkswagen driving erratically. The car's stolen. The officer pulls it over, and after a short struggle, Ted Bundy's life on the run is over. For good. It's incredible, right? His own predictable patterns were his ultimate undoing. And what happened next? Well, it literally changed everything. Bundy's trial in Florida wasn't just some legal proceeding. It was a media circus. For the very first time in history, America could tune in on their TVs and watch a serial killer fight for his life, live. The courtroom basically became a television studio. And Bundy, being the narcissist he was, he absolutely relished the spotlight. He decided to act as his own lawyer, and he put on his final and maybe his greatest performance. He was charming, he was intelligent, he was defiant. The cameras loved him, and horrifyingly, so did a lot of the viewers. He got bags and bags of fan mail, much of it from women who had fallen for the killer they were watching on their screens. But despite his whole act, the evidence was just overwhelming. He was found guilty, sentenced to death. For years, he claimed he was innocent, but in the final days before his execution, he started to confess. He ultimately admitted to over 30 murders, although investigators believe the real number could be closer to 100. On January 24th, 1989, his reign of terror was officially over. You know, the legacy of Ted Bundy isn't just about the lives he destroyed. It's in this terrifying realization that monsters don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes they live right next door, hiding behind a charming smile. And it really just leaves all of us to wonder, how well do you really know the people next door?